Welcome all. Coleman Report Live, May 27th edition. Katie Watucky, our editor, and Thomas Kimsey, CEO of Thomas USAF. Thomas, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for being here today. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Let's see. I know we always have new people. Joseph, go back one slide, please. Be sure and download these and keep track of them. All you have to do is print it out. You can sign it. You can track it in your HR department or whatever, because this does satisfy the question that SBA will ask you, and also your regulators, what are you doing for training? And this definitely counts as training. Well, we have a lot of information. Thomas is going to talk about a BNI, what BNI is doing to solve this issue. Let's ask the first poll question. Have you funded a USDA BNI loan this year? Thomas, the BNI is not accessed by many lenders, correct?
That's right. It's more of a small group of niche lenders. I know many look to participate in it, but it's still just a niche group participating in it, Bob. And we're certainly excited about what the USDA is doing here with the through the BNI CARES Act that they've been able to get funding for.
Good. Well, I know we're going to talk about that. I would be open to doing BNI loans. The nice thing about them is you can piggyback them with the SBA loan, and they're a little bit more difficult than SBA. I understand that, but if you have a good borrower who's maxed out on SBA, you can certainly flip them over to a BNI. Thomas, so is $10 million up to $10 million? Is that realistic, or is it lower or higher? What's the threshold these days?
Yeah, the 10 million is still the threshold with the regular program that's out there right now. To get above 10 million, you got to have the priority point scoring over 75 points to get above 10 million. But we're excited about the new program that allows us to go up to 25 million, Bob.
Well, talk about your event on Friday. First of all, it's a free webinar. It's a sponsored one, but it's put on by the National Rural Lenders Roundtable. Thomas, tell us what's going to happen on Friday.
Sure. So the National Rural Lenders Roundtable is putting on this webinar in conjunction with the USDA National Office to talk about the USDA BNI CARES Act loan program that they're rolling out last week. And we want to be able to offer this to all our members and your guests as well to educate them on the opportunities that the USDA is providing through this loan program, specifically for rural America. As you hear me say a lot of times, we're just happy that the USDA is providing this program so we can provide that access to capital to rural America. Because
can you give us just a brief overview of what the CARES Act does for BNI?
Sure. So they have $1 billion fund specifically for working capital. It is not a forgivable loan program like the PPP. It is a 10-year, 90% guaranteed loan program, 2% fee. But it is specifically for working capital, and you have to show the need, how the COVID virus has affected the business or will affect the business. And it's based on a 10-year. They're up to 3 years of interest only and deferred payments. It's sort of a combination of deferred principal payments and some interest only payments in there as well. But I want to emphasize it's not a forgivable loan program. It is you have to repay it.
And it's easy to determine eligibility. We don't have it here, but we'll certainly do it on Friday.
Right.
Just plug in the address and you can see if it's considered a rural area. What's the rule of thumb, Thomas, for determining if it's rural or not?
50,000 or less in population. And as you said, Bob, it's always important to plug it into the website to make sure a lot of areas you think are or not may be. It's a funky how they come up with it. So it's always good to plug it in and make sure it qualifies, especially if it's close to an urban area. It most likely will not qualify.
Yeah, very good. But you can also do, for example, if you have a facility at, say, the Port of Long Beach, but you're that's eligible if your main business is out of the Central Valley in California. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And also, if you have food hubs, those are eligible in urban areas as well. So there are some niches.
Anyway, so we'll have a link for you to sign up. As I said, there's no cost for this program, and it's well worth your time to be versed in this. My analogy on this is SBA. You can produce these off a factory assembly line. B&I, you're building the car from the tires up. So it's a little bit more work, but it's also very profitable. And one of the big advantages to this loan is there's no fee or tax on splitting those premiums over 110, correct, Thomas?
That is correct. That is one of the beauties of the B&I program. And just to add to this, this new B&I CARES Act does apply for nonprofits in rural areas, ag production as well. They've added in. So there are a lot of different groups that qualify. And, we're just happy that we can provide this to the rural areas that we feel were left out in the PPP program.
Great. Second poll question. Have you received notification from the SBA about further research for your PPP loans? Seems about right. What I do know is it is in the E-Tran. I'm not an expert on this. Lance is more of an expert than I am. But I wanted to bring this up because if it's flagged in E-Tran, SB is saying that the review needs to be completed by tomorrow. So take a look at that, understand what needs to be done. The risk is you could lose, not necessarily lose the guarantee unless it's ineligible, but you could lose that fee that you're counting on. So the quote here is, any loans remaining in research status after May 28th will be at risk by cancellation of SBA. So make sure you're on top of that and you take care of that. And we put this poll question in just, are you worried about receiving PPP loan processing fees? Because I know some of the lenders out there have put in huge numbers and there's a huge receivable on their books from SBA. Thomas, how much, you're not doing any PPP loans, are you, Thomas?
We did do a lot of PPP, Bob. We did a little less than 300 loans for approximately $125 million. So yes, I've been extremely busy like most everybody that's here each day with PPP and, continuing to work through some of the last ones for funding. But we've been very busy like everyone else. Just we're ready to get back to our B&I, our core business.
How would you answer this poll question? Are you worried? Yes or no?
No.
Yeah, I tend to be in the no category. I know the legislation said we have to be, SBA would pay it within 5 days. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Right.
But SBA, as long, SBA is not going to hang the lenders out on this. I know we have dribbles and drabs of interim final rules, and it sort of your eyes glaze over after a while. But let's bring Katie into the conversation. Katie, what we've done is Katie and Joseph went back and they determined these are pending legislations in Congress. So we want to give you an oversight of when you hear these buzzwords, what's going on. Katie, tell us, I guess we have three pending legislation in Congress. Go ahead, Katie. What's the Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act?
So this one I hadn't even heard of until Lance actually mentioned it to me the other day. It kind of hasn't had quite the press coverage that some of the others have, but this one is quickly becoming one of the more favored acts for these purposes. What it's allowing is for forgiveness expenses to go beyond the 8-week covered period. That is suggesting 24 weeks for this particular act is what they're wanting. They also want to eliminate restrictions limiting non-payroll expenses to 25% of the loan proceeds. They have no suggestions on what that new restrictions, if any, would be in place. It's going to eliminate restrictions that limit loan terms to 2 years. Again, they don't really have any suggestions on how long they'll be now. They're saying maybe more similar to other SBA programs. And it ensures full access to payroll tax deferments for businesses that take PPP loans and extends the rehiring deadline to offset the effect of enhanced unemployment insurance That deadline right now is June 30th. They want to extend it to July 31st. So this
Right.
this act right now is pending. They wanted to discuss it today. I looked at the docket. It doesn't look like it's going to actually get discussed today, but definitely within the next week or two, we're going to see this pass probably.
Great. Thank you for that. Number 2, the HEROES Act. What is that about?
So the HEROES Act was for a long time the favorite act. It's very similar. It has similar things that they're asking for, maybe a little bit different. It extends the PPP coverage period for borrowers until the end of the calendar year. It sets aside funds for community lenders and funds for small businesses with 10 or fewer employees, and requires regular reporting by the SBA on specific demographics. This was introduced by Velazquez and passed in the House already, so this just needs to go to the Senate. The Senate is not scheduled to look at it, though, this week, so I don't know when the Senate will take a look at it.
And finally, the Equity and COVID-19 Recovery Act of 2020.
So this one has been radio silent. There's no vote scheduled on it, but it's worth mentioning. This one creates a realistic threshold for community development, financial institutions, and other mission-based nonprofit lenders. It sets aside at least $10 million for community development, financial institutions. It sets aside based on the number of employees to ensure the smallest businesses are actually able to access PPP funds. It allows a bonus of 2 to 5% reimbursement from the SBA to lenders for approval of new market tax credit and opportunity zones, hub zones, things like that. And the minimum SBA reimbursement fee of $2,500 for community financial institutions.
Thank you for that, Katie. Yeah, we just wanted to give an overview of what some of the pending legislation is. I think Congress has been very proactive in terms of attempting to solve the problems and to help out Main Street and the lenders. Thomas, I'd like to ask this question. How do you feel our politicians in Washington have reacted in terms of helping Main Street?
Well, I think that, the PPP was certainly a step in the right direction, as we've all seen, and we've all worked very hard. But, some of the examples that Katie just gave in some of these new bills is certainly needed. Extending the period from 8 weeks to hopefully 16 is going to be a huge benefit. But, certainly a step in the right direction. I don't want to be, too critical today. We're happy to help, but certainly would be nice if maybe they would talk to small business owners and sometime to understand how it works on Main Street as opposed to in DC.
Yeah, no, look, there's always going to be glitches, and the speed that SBA has moved as well as Congress is phenomenal. So Katie talks about there's going to be rogue borrowers and there's going to be glitches that we need to solve. But Congress is being very proactive, as well as SBA. And I might tip of the hat to them on that. Katie, I don't want you to read the, this is what we released today, correct? The interim final rule. You don't need to read all this.
Right.
Other than to say we did this as our daily email. Just give me 1 or 2 highlights that lenders should know about, Katie.
So I think Lance is going to go into this in depth in the later webinar. But if the SBA determines that the borrower was ineligible for a PPP loan, the lender is not eligible for a processing fee. And that's why we asked the question earlier, because a lot of people are really concerned about that particular issue, because a lot of these loans went through very quickly. We had to get the money out. So that's definitely a big concern for lenders right now. Also, let's see, what's some other important things? This really, the whole interim final rule really walks you through what you need to be submitting to the SBA, how quickly you need to get forms out there. If something's not, if something doesn't look right, the SBA is going to let you know. You need to talk to the borrower and figure out what it is, try to fix it if you can, and it tells you what to do if that is the case. But unfortunately, we don't have any ruling on how we're supposed to submit this stuff. I'm guessing probably E-Tran or something like that. but we're still waiting on that.
Yeah, and there will be further guidance. We don't know when that will hit. Absolutely. Hey, John and Alicia, thank you for your questions. I'm going to hold these over for Lance. If you're on the webinar at 11 o'clock, and there it is, Lance is doing the webinar, 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern today. I'll have him address those questions. We can still take signups on that and what's going on with PPP loan forgiveness. Just send an email to joseph@colemanreport.com. He'll do all the paperwork for you. We also have a how to prepare the 1502 report, which now is due on Friday, and Lance is doing that tomorrow as well. And then, of course, on Friday, we'll have the National Rural Lenders Roundtable Partners. And Thomas, go ahead and wrap that up. You have buy-in from the DC staff. Who from DC main office will be participating in this webinar?
Here we'll have Mark Brzezinski, who, primary architect of the BNI CARES Act, Aaron Morris.
There you go, Aaron Morris.
And Dave Chestnut. So we'll have the key players there to go through the PowerPoint and to answer questions. And we will be putting a link so we can go ahead and get questions in advance, and then we can take questions during the session as well. But it will be a very informative webinar. We are very excited to have the DC staff to participate with this, and we think it's going to be a great program. It's going to help rural America.
Great, very good. Hey, Katie, thanks for joining us. Thomas, good to see you as always. This concludes today's program. We'll talk to you. We'll either see you at 11 o'clock or in an hour, or we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.